This lesson is over operations of rational numbers, fractions, and decimals, including positives and negative. So how do you know that negative 3 3/4 plus 2 2/3 is negative? How do you know? Well, there are tons of ways to figure out, and I'm going to show you different ways of how you can know this. You can actually use a number line. So starting at 0, you go back 3 3/4. Plus 2 2/3, that means you go positive 2 2/3. As you can tell, you're still in the negative side. I can draw pictures. I can draw negative 3 3/4, and I can draw 2 2/3. I cancel out negatives and positive, and then as you can tell right here, I cancel out part of this negative fraction and part of it, so the answer is negative. I can estimate negative 3 3/4 is close to negative 4. 2 2/3 is close to positive 3. So to get more negatives, more positive, more negatives, so it's about negative 1. I can turn it into decimals. Negative 3 7/500 is the same as saying negative 3 3/4. 2 2/3 is the same as saying 2.66 repeating bar, and there are more negatives. Or I can just solve it. I can find an improper fraction of 3 3/4 as negative 15/4. The improper fraction of 2 2/3 is 8/3. What's the common denominator? Least common number is 12. I build it up to negative 45/12. 8/3 times 4 is 32/12, and there are more negatives than positives. So we are going to be practicing this today. You're going to decide if it's thumbs up, positive, or thumbs down is negative. So use this number line to help you if you need to. What is negative 7 plus 9? So negative 7 plus 9. Go 4 9 spaces starting from negative 7. It is positive. Negative 1 plus negative 9. Positive or negative? So go negative 1 and then go 9 more units left, negative 10. Oh, negative. Again, I'm not solving it. 8 minus negative 9. Do you still remember how to subtract integers? Positive, negative. For those who forgot, you start with 8. If I take away 9 negatives from here, what are you going to have left from this? So remember, you have to draw 0 pairs, 9 positives and 9 negatives. If I take away these 9 negatives, you're left with positive. So as you can tell, 8 minus negative 9 is the same as saying 8 plus 9, positive. Negative 3.5 plus negative 3 1/4, positive or negative? Let's think. If I go negative 3.5 and I go negative 3 1/4, that goes more farther left. It's going to be negative. And last but not least, negative 3.5, 4 7/10. Well, first of all, is there more negatives, more positive? More positive, so the answer is going to be positive. You could say negative 3.5 is the same as saying negative 3 5/10, and then you go 4 units and 7/10. That will be positive. So what we're going to do now is we are going to practice adding negatives and positive fraction. So here is a number line. 0 is in the center. So I'm going to have negative 3/10. Will that go left of 0 or right of 0? Hopefully you say left of 0. Then I have plus a half. Will it go farther left or will it go right? Right. So as you can tell, the answer will be positive. Do you know what denominator 2 and 10, I want to find the exact answer now. What denominator do 2 and 10 share? The least common denominator. Hopefully you say 10. What's another way to rewrite 1/2 as 10? Do you know the relationship? Hopefully you said times 5. So 5/10 is the same as saying 1/2. So 5/10 is the same as saying 1/2. What happens when you have a negative and a positive? This makes 0 pair. So it's positive 2/10 or 1/5. Next one. You have negative 3/8, negative 1/8, negative 2/8, negative 3/8, plus negative 1/4. Will it go right or left? Hopefully you say left. So the answer will be negative. But I want to find a more exact answer now. What denominator, least common denominator, does 8 and 4 share? 8. What's the relationship from 4 to 8? Times 2 times 2. So I can exchange 1/4 with 2/8. So we are negative 5/8. Negative 3/8 plus negative 2/8 is negative 5/8. Next one, 1/3 minus negative 1/4. So do you remember integer operations? So you start with 1/3, you keep this. You make some 0 pairs. So you add, if you take away the negatives 1/4, all the negatives, what are you left? With the positive. So what is 1/3 plus 1/4? 1/3 plus 1/4. Can I now exchange 1/3, 1/4 with a common denominator? Hopefully you say 12. What's the relationship from 3 to 12? Times 4. What's the relationship from 4 to 12? Times 3. So 4/12. So I could change 1/3 with 4/12. And I exchange the 3/12, 1/4 with 3/12. That would be 7/12. And the last example, negative 3 and 7/100. That goes left of 0. Subtraction. If you take away the positives, what do you have left? What's the opposite of positive? Negative. So it's negative 3 and 7/100 plus negative 4 and 5/200. But what would this answer be? I know this answer is going to be negative. So let's add this up and find out what it's going to be. 1 plus 2 is 3. 7 plus 5 is 12. Carry 1. It'd be negative 8 and 23/100. So we're going to practice with 2 word problems now to see if you really do understand this. Kelly bought 9 and 1/4 yards of fabric, and she bought 6 and 5/4 yards of fabric. Well, that's a lot of fabric she bought. How much more blue fabric did she buy than red fabric? Subtract. So 6 and 5/8. I want to know how much more right here, this gap. How much more did she buy? So 9 and 1/4 minus 6 and 5/8. Do you know what least common denominator they share? Hopefully you'll say 8. So what's the relationship from 4 to 8 times 2 to 8? Oh, this is a regrouping question. Do you remember how to regroup from elementary school? Can I take away 5/8 from 2/8? I don't think so. So you have to regroup from the 9, it becomes 8. So if you regroup from the 9 to 8, you take away 1 whole bar. How can I rewrite this 1 with a denominator of 8? How can I rewrite 1 whole with a denominator 8, 8? If I cut this into 8 eighths, that's the same thing as saying 1 whole. So 2/8 plus 8/8 adds up to 10/8. Now, can I subtract this? 10/8 minus 5/8 is 5/8. 8 minus 6, so it's 2 and 5/8. Do you remember this from elementary school? Hopefully you say yes. Last but not least, Kate and Ben are collecting aluminum cans to earn money for a school project. So far, Kate has collected 16 and 2/3 pounds of can. Ben has collected 14 and 3/4 pounds. How many more? So what is this gap right here? This is a subtraction question. So let's subtract this. 16 and 2/3 minus 14 and 3/4. What common denominator do they share? 12 times 4 times 4 is 8/12 times 3 is 9/12. Can you take 9/12 away from 8/12? No, you're going to have to regroup. This becomes a 15. So you take away 1 whole from the 16. 15 minus 14 is 1. So we know our answer is going to be 1. There's a gap of 1 and something. Can I rename this 1 whole as a fraction? What's another way to say 1 whole as a fraction? Well, if you think of fraction towers, do I even have any? Oh, here is fraction. If you think of fraction, what's another way to say 1 whole with a denominator 12? 12 twelfths. So I'm going to replace this 1 whole. Let me erase it with 12 twelfths. So 8/12 plus 12/12 is 20/12. Now let's subtract this. 20/12 minus 9/12 is 11/12. 1 11/12.